The Spanish Grand Prix, as we previously stated in one of our videos, was a make or break race for Mercedes. Mercedes needed an update to keep up with their competition, since other teams including Red Bull and Ferrari were upgrading their cars. And based on last weekend, it appears that Mercedes has cracked the code to start solving its largest problem in porpoising, which is allowing them to achieve higher speeds. So what upgrades did Mercedes bring to Spain to finally find their pace again? And what did the Mercedes team have to say about their upgrades and the updates? Let's dive right in. Almost all the teams brought upgrades to the circuit last weekend, so Mercedes weren't the only ones to upgrade their car. But their upgrades were one of the most talked about on the grid, especially as rumours were spreading that they would have finally found a way to mitigate their ongoing porpoising problems. Mercedes introduced upgrades last weekend to combat this. They're primarily centered on the floor. There are two improvements to the floor, one of which is the addition of a new snap to the outer edge. It's mostly intended to boost floor performance when running closer to the ground. And second, a new bib vane has been put on the car in the middle of the keel, which causes local loads in the middle of the car and sends a vortex beneath the main floor. Due to the zero pod design, the floor is highly exposed compared to other teams, and it's possible that this is negatively damaging the floor, which doesn't assist with porpoising. As a result, these modifications appear to be improving floor performance while also letting the car get closer to the ground to generate more downforce. Other improvements have also been made, including a new lower deflector end plate to help enhance overall diffuser load, while the end plate camber change assists flow into the flow cake tin deflector and thus float to the back of the car. Next thing, one thing that's worth noting that had gone unnoticed is that Mercedes had made additional tweaks to its front wing after introducing a daring new concept in Miami. The team has changed the geometry of the end plate, which is now more inwardly inclined than before, in addition to the forwardly swept flap and end plate juncture. This will obviously have an impact on the airflow's trajectory in and of itself, but the designers have also used this as an opportunity to increase the breadth of the dive plane when compared to the previous standard. All these upgrades helped Mercedes regain pace in the Spanish Grand Prix, which resulted in them finishing third and fifth, with Hamilton believing he could have been fighting at the front of the grid were it not for his first lap crash with Kevin Magnussen. Mercedes are definitely looking stronger than ever this season, and could be fighting for a podium spot at Monaco next weekend. The introduction of these parts are a sign that Mercedes are finally understanding their ongoing porpoising problem, and are slowly but surely finding a cure for it. Mercedes technical director Mike Elliott said that these new parts have definitely settled the car down. About the updates, he said the following: "The package we brought here, we're definitely able to run the car in a position much more close to where we'd ideally run it, so there's a chunk of downforce that comes from that. And the car just is a lot more settled. The drivers look happy now. There's a sort of body language is coming from them that says that they feel a car that feels a bit more like a race car. It's safe to say that Mercedes are returning to their full potential, possibly even able to compete for race wins anytime soon." With team principal Toto Wolff believing that Lewis Hamilton could have won the race in Spain had it not been for the crash in the first lap. Even though Hamilton asked to retire the car after the crash, Toto never lost hope. It's always a decision to make when you've basically lost the race to decide if there's a benefit of continuing, Wolff told Sky Sports F1. "I think from a driver's perspective, you're thinking that can't be possible. I'm 50 seconds behind the leaders. It's still available mileage. We're never giving up anyway." And at the end, his race pace was stunning. He would have raced for the win. For a variety of reasons, the Mercedes team principal believes the decision to retain Hamilton in the race was justifiable. Along with returning to 5th place and scoring 10 points, Hamilton was able to show a strong upturn in pace and tyre management in the second half of the race, which Wolff described as pit stops tweaks. "I think on the first stint, we need to look up how we managed the tyre," said Wolff. "It looked like we had no chance to follow the pace. Even without DRS, Max was able to overtake Russell with the new tyre. But then, somehow, the car flipped in terms of performance. We saw Lewis storming to the front with the same age tyres, and then we realised, okay, there is something to learn here. And then suddenly, we unlocked the potential by just tweaking things at the pit stop. I'm happy that we didn't retire Lewis, because that was the most valuable race for us to compare the two cars, to compare setups and tyres. It seems like Mercedes are finally running their Formula 1 car closer to its intended setup, which means we could see the W13 concept in full potential during the following races. This could possibly open up the title fight if the two Mercedes drivers are now also in the fight for race wins. We'll just have to wait until the drivers arrive in Monaco to see if the Mercedes cars have really improved in the long run. Liking this video so far? Be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel to never miss out on our content. So what did the Mercedes driver have to say about the uplifting result in Barcelona? When asked if Mercedes, lifted by their new upgrades, are now back in the title fight, Russell said, "I'd love to say that, but today was very tough. I gave everything I could to hold Max off, but he did an amazing job. I'm just so proud to be standing here because the guys have worked so hard. So this one is for the guys back at Brackley and Brickworth. When I had the Red Bull in my mirrors, all I was doing was my maximum to keep them behind, and it was an enjoyable good couple of laps," continued Russell. "I'm just pleased to be able to bring it home P3. It's a lot of points on the board for us. Well done to Max, he did a great job. It was very difficult in the last few laps, it was a survival race." Mercedes were on track for a P3 and P4 until its drivers were instructed to lift and coast during the final laps. Carlos Sainz was able to pass Hamilton on the final lap as a result of this. However, given Hamilton's incredible comeback, the team was happy to take home an additional 25 points. About his incredible comeback, Hamilton said the following: "I'm so happy. It felt a lot like some of the old days, the older races that I've done. It feels amazing. A race like that is like a win. It feels better than most wins when you've come from so far back." Hamilton admitted that he was incorrect to ask his team whether they should retire his car after he found himself at the back of the race. "I was hoping for a smoother race, without the issue at the beginning," he continued. "I was 30 seconds behind last at one stage, and if you think back to Jeddah when I was in 15th and struggled to get into the top 10, I thought it would be impossible to get back into the points. But the team said I was on for 8th. I couldn't understand it at the beginning, and I thought they were being super optimistic. But I gave it everything to see where I'd come out, and it turns out I was higher than 8th. I wasn't being defeatist, but I was 30 seconds behind, and I did not want to have to use a whole engine to drive around in last, or outside the top 15, to then take a penalty or something like that. But I'm glad we didn't. It just shows that you never stop, never give up, and that's what we do." Hamilton believes he could have won the race if he hadn't collided with Magnussen in the opening stages. He's convinced, however, that if he follows Russell's experiment this weekend, his car will be fast in Monaco. "Since the last race of the year, it's been difficult all around," said Hamilton. "To then have the difficulties that we have with the car, and then certain knockbacks with safety cars and all sorts of things, we kept getting back on the horse and pushing and not giving up. We've made a lot of improvements with the car, and the race pace is much better. It's much nicer in the race. They've experimented with something on George's car that ultimately proved to be the better way to go in qualifying, and maybe at the next race I'll take that on. Without that clash, I would have been fighting with the Red Bulls. Does this mean that Mercedes are really back for this season? Like said before in the video, we'll have to wait until next weekend in Monaco to see if the upgrades are really making the car competitive again. We sure can't wait to see what happens next weekend. For now, that's it. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next video.